Hey, race fans, Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip here. You know, it's time to drop the green flag on another edition of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. So, hey, pull those belts tight one more time. Here's my buddy Hermie Sadler and Senator Bill Stanley. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's see what they have to say, boys and girls.
I am Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I'm leaning right.
And I'm former NASCAR driver and Fox Sports analyst Hermie Sadler, and I am turning left. Leaning right and turning left with Sadler and the Senator is once again powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Pace-O-Matic indeed. What a great place. What a great company. What a great bunch of people. Hey, Hermie, how are
Senator.
you? Last week in June. We're getting into summertime. How are you?
Getting close to July 4th. A lot going on. Got some racing to talk about coming up.
We do.
Cars back on track. The Sadler Stanley racing car back on track.
It's about time.
Been a while.
Yeah, about time.
Got a lot to discuss. You want to set the stage? Do we have a sponsor for the studio yet?
We are actually.
Because I have a tremendous update on sponsorship for Turning Left.
Well, you know, in the last couple podcasts, you've been talking about it. So I'm excited to hear if maybe you can deliver on those words that you've been talking.
Huge update.
Well, welcome back to our original home where we started back in January. This is podcast number 24. We are getting to podcast number 25, halfway through the year, a quarter of the way through the 2-year contract that we have with the wonderful people at Podcast Heat. We are sitting atop the Stanley Law Group skyscraper in the Stanley Law Group studio, which is also the Stanley Law Group conference room. And this is where we started, and here we come back again, and we're together. And I always like taping when we're together. Sometimes we do it when you're in Emporia and I'm in Rocky Mount.
Emporia.
Isn't that how you pronounce it? No? And so it's always
Elizabeth
great.
Taylor was at the Peanut Festival parade back in the early 80s, and she called it Euphoria. I'm so happy to be here in Euphoria.
Is that right?
She sure did.
So, and you didn't change the name of the city right then and there?
But I call it Emporia, but you can call it Emporia if you want to.
Oh, all right. I thought that's how you pronounced it. You know, because sometimes, you know, in Virginia, we pronounce our towns in a certain way. Like we have a place called Burnt Chimney in Franklin County, and most of the people in Franklin County call it Burnt Chimbley. And I love that. And they call columns. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's just all in pronunciation.
Way back on one of our first couple podcasts, we had Joe Camarada on, and y'all had some kind of back and forth on how you pronounce some town in the western part of the state.
Dickhead.
No, had nothing to do with dickhead.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, we had, golly, I can't remember. Oh, that was in Tazewell.
Yeah, Tazewell.
And he said Tazewell or Tazewell.
Yeah, you said Tazewell.
Tazewell.
Yeah.
Tazewell. Well, if you're from there, it's like, you know, my family, part of my Stanley family's out from in the Midwest, and the state, everybody calls it Missouri. Well, then they know you're not from Missouri. Right. So there you go. So Emporia.
You can call it that if you like.
I love Emporia.
Emporia.
Yeah.
It's
like the gateway to the South. It's like our version of south of the border, except without the big hat Empire State Building.
It's where a lot of people stop on the way to vacation to get gas at the truck stop or the slip-in and food, and also probably a speeding ticket.
Have you seen the courthouse? It's beautiful.
I have seen the courthouse more than I care to. I've been there more in the last year than I ever dreamed I would in my whole life.
Yeah, you know, I'd never practiced in the Greensville Circuit Court before. Hadn't had the pleasure and honor before that, but now we're kind of semi-regular visitors there, and we got something coming up in November.
We do,
and it'll be exciting. I'm excited.
A lot of people are pulling for us and on our team as we head back to court in November. But we got another guest on the podcast.
We have a guy that's coming close to becoming a semi-regular. He's like our third wheel.
Everything is going to be well and good until he starts asking for a check.
A check? He won't even let us do the show in Memory Makers, his wife and his little dress shop that he has. So, you know, I think...
You mean the one across the street from Butts and Butts?
Butts and Butts, that's right. Yeah. Which is not a strip club.
Well, joining us once again on the podcast is small business owner, new car sales manager, and town council member. Ward 3 is what you call it, right?
That's correct, Ward 3.
Shep Moss, South Hill, Virginia. Good afternoon.
I didn't get backed by popular demand this time. That kind of concerned
Well,
me
you're
a
backed
little
by, we didn't have anybody else this time.
bit.
Wait a minute.
Default.
And if you're the elected official of Ward 3, does that make you the warden?
Well, in South Hill, not South Hill, like Tar Heel. It's
South
kind of like
Heel.
Employer. Like
Is it
your
heel or
employer.
hill?
Hill.
It's Hill.
One syllable?
Why
One
isn't it?
syllable.
Why isn't it?
H-I-double-L.
Why isn't it South Heel?
It's kind of why it's not Employer. It's
Oh.
Emporia.
All right, I'm just learning new things here today.
All right,
Phonics.
so what are we going to we got to do a leaning right and a turning left, but after that, what can our guest expect to hear from us on today's podcast? Because I'm in full disclosure, going to let everybody know that as we've moved along in the leaning right and turning left podcast world and business plan for this podcast, you and Brad Tuesday have taken over complete creative control of this podcast,
Yes, we have. In fact, we came up last night again, and
which is all well and good.
Yeah.
Except y'all have a syllabus and I don't.
well. So we're taking this very seriously because it's growing exponentially. People are listening in, tuning in. We're growing in our numbers. The number of downloads has been phenomenal, and so sometimes you need a little structure. I went online because everything online is truth, right?
Always.
Just like wrestling. And I took a pod class, or at least I listened to a 1-hour dissertation on how you make a podcast better. So they were talking about structure, they were talking about focus, they were talking about personality. Well, the personality is you, Hermie, and the focus should be you, Hermie, because you've got a lot of stories to tell. I'm just, like I said, I'm not the dopey mayor, but I am the dopey senator. And so we've added some structure. So in today's episode, 2 weeks back, we had set out a podcast that we're going to talk about Hermie Sadler and pro wrestling. Wrasslin or wrestling?
Either.
Okay.
Or either.
Here we go.
Touche.
Here we go.
And so, I have gotten a lot of questions. People have been asking, when's that wrestling episode coming on? We weren't able to do it last week because we had a very important episode about, so you want to become a political candidate.
Boy, that was fun, wasn't it?
That was great and informative, too.
Informative.
And I thought the drop-ins with Louise Lucas were pretty special. But part
I
of
bet
that...
I bet a lot of people were surprised.
Yeah, that a public official would use the MFer. But you saw in that podcast the growing popularity of hermetology and also Hermie's answering machine. So we're going to have a very special Hermie's answering machine. People can go to our Facebook page, the Leaning Right and Turning Left podcast Facebook page. Right there is a way that you can leave us a message for Hermie on Hermie's antique, old-fashioned answering machine. Every week, Hermie's got a new message on there, and after the beep, you leave the message, and then we play it. And so we had a wild one last week.
The point that I want to make is, just like last week, I had no idea that I was going to be faced with reacting and responding to Senator Louise Lucas addressing her base. And I have no idea what I'm going to be faced with on today's podcast as far as hermetology or Hermie's answer machine or what other kind of deal y'all come up with to put me on the spot.
See, and that's where Brad Tuesday, our executive producer here, a field guy, Chad Monday, who we call Brad Tuesday, he and I sit down and we do production meetings. And the best part about it is all we do is try to make each other laugh. And if we're both laughing, then we know we've hit it. Then we know we've hit it. And then we pull a surprise on you, Hermie, and then you kind of give us that look like, what the hell? And that is the hook.
All right, you're in full politician mode right now because I asked you a question. What are we going to hear and learn on today's podcast?
Okay, so today's podcast, we're going to talk about your wrestling career. We're going to have some stories. Shep
I
was a
didn't
part of that.
really have a wrestling career.
I wouldn't call it a career.
Look, I had a paper route for like 2 weeks. I said I was in the newspaper business, so you can say that's a career.
I do believe that I'm undefeated.
I worked at McDonald's for 3 weeks. I said I worked in corporate America.
Okay, so we're going to hear
Before I
about
became aware.
my wrestling career.
Undefeated and undisputed.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Well, plenty of dispute.
But you have such, you have such a history there interwoven. I mean, a lot of your friends, even to this day,
I
are
was
wrestling.
defeated by the blue sticker, which we'll get to.
Okay.
The blue
There is
sticker.
a story
interesting.
about the sticker.
See, and that's why we don't prep you up. But we've got a couple drop-ins. We're getting really good with these drop-ins, as you can tell. We got a couple drop-ins that I think will further the discussion. It'll be fun.
All right. So it's my job right now to keep us on track. So
if you come to a production meeting, you'd really keep
I
us on
didn't. I wasn't invited to the production
The
meeting.
Well, there's
daggone
a reason for
production
that.
budget has exploded on this podcast. We are high atop the Stanley Law Group office. I'm just wondering
Skyscraper.
when we are going to have an open public viewing of the recording of the podcast.
Why would we ever do that? Our secrets.
We
would be
have talked
exposed.
to our sponsor, Pace-O-Matic, about the possibility of getting out and doing some at some locations around Richmond, maybe up in the western part of the state where Senator Stanley is, maybe some more down in Emporia. We've done a couple at Faux Show, but maybe move around, down there as well. Okay.
Well, we have been moving around. I mean, the thing about us is we've been nimble in being able to record this wherever we are. We've got mobile equipment. We've got a good soundboard that Brad Tuesday runs for us. It's been, I think it changes up the flavor of it, and I think it makes it pretty good. I mean, we've been in a dang truck stop. The one place we have not been in is Memory Makers.
Can I get us back on track again?
No.
One other comment. I will say the restroom here was a little bit better than at the truck stop.
I did not.
I did not need the hand dryer before we started the podcast today.
Yeah. Well, and I must confess, because I told Brad in the car, I said, I was looking at my hair, and I noticed I had a really long nose hair, and I leaned in. And that if anybody listened to the podcast a couple weeks back, that sink was really low, and I just created a funnel. I did it to myself. But
Can we
again, I want to apologize to the trucker.
Can we start the show
out
now?
there.
So
Sure.
we start out with a leaning right and a turning left moment.
You had a hand in this one.
We got so I really had my mind set on the leaning right moment that I was going to ask you last week, but we got so tied up in the discussion about Louise Lucas and wanting to be a candidate potentially and this and that and the other, we didn't get a chance to get to it. But so I want to go back to a thought that I had a couple weeks ago to discuss your leaning right moment with you. And before I get to that, however, I want to give you an opportunity, as you like to do, to mention your sponsor of the leaning right moment. And at the same time, I'd like to request to see a copy of a check that came from our leaning right sponsor, that it's in the account that we're supposed to have, both of us are supposed to have access to. Go ahead, Senator.
Okay, well, let's answer the second question first. That's how lawyers usually do it.
At least
if
a
you make
deposit
a
ticket.
reasonable request in writing, we will open the books to you. That's in the bylaws of the corporation that you and I have formed.
Wait a minute. We've got a FOIA request to check now? Is that what you're
Well, let's do it by the book, man.
Okay.
But I have it. And in fact, I talk to Tommy on a regular basis, was on the phone with him yesterday. I always love talking to him. He makes me laugh. We were talking about the podcast and how we always talk about him. So this leaning right moment is once again brought to you by Charlie's Waterfront Cafe in beautiful downtown Farmville, Virginia, right next to the Greenfront Furniture Store, overlooking the Appomattox River. I still don't know if it's a creek or a river, and I keep forgetting to ask Tommy about that. But they got great food, a great atmosphere. The food is awesome. You can eat indoor dining, outdoor dining. You can rent it for parties. On weekends, they have bands there. And even in the basement, they have the tasting cellar, which is an amazing menu, a lighter menu. But you can get some of the great Virginia wines that our great vineyards produce around here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Leaning Right Moment is brought to you by Tom Graziano and the Charlie's Waterfront Cafe Restaurant.
So a couple weeks ago, you guys, as the General Assembly was brought back in to discuss the budget.
Yes.
Okay, so what do y'all call that?
We call it the Governor's Amendments hearing. Well,
So y'all were brought
session.
in to discuss the governor's amendments that he sent back down
35 of them.
to the General Assembly.
And so what happens is it's a House bill. That's the tradition, because it used to be way back in the time only the House did the budget. And so now the Senate and the House proposed budgets. They take our Senate budget and they put it underneath the House budget. So HB 30, House Bill 30, is the 2-year biennium plan for spending in Virginia. And the number was $224 billion spent over 2 years, which is an amazing amount of money compared to where it was when I came into the office of the Senate in the 19th and the 20th Senate districts, which was in the $100 billion deal. So we are spending a lot of taxpayer money.
That's billion?
A billion. And a lot of that money is spent on for localities like yours, Shep, for law enforcement, for education, for retirement, for Virginia retirement system, for our state employees. a lot of those priorities are already taken up. So a lot of that budget is already spoken for. So whatever the surplus is, that's where the special interests come in. That's where perhaps new laws that need funding can get funding. And so when we sent the budget out, as we talked about before, to the governor, he comes back with proposed amendments. He came back with 35. Brad Tuesday is also one of my legislative aides, and Phil Rapp, who's one of my great legislative aides who I've had for years, sat down and looked over the budget with me. But they came back and said that the governor had amended the budget, not just 35 ways and different spending priorities, but also 5 pieces of amendments that were actually legislating in the budget. That goes over to the House. The House considers it since it's an HB 30. So of those 35 amendments, I think 32 came over. 3 were defeated. 2 were defeated. 1 was not even taken up. And they sent it over to us late in the day. We started at noon. We didn't get out of there until 8:45. I think I called you on the road at 9-ish, Herm, when we left there to discuss what we had. But what we saw was the governor was legislating through the budget. And you've been amazed how the Democrats who wrote the budget in the Senate side wrote the skill game legislation into the budget that we've talked about before, basically redefining skill games and appropriate rewards. We're now complaining that how dare the governor legislate in the budget. And it was just an amazing thing for me. And I was getting texts from Hermie, who was watching. He's always watching his government.
I was going to say, I didn't get a chance to watch most of the stuff that day because I was, working and doing other things. But anybody who's followed this podcast for the last couple of months can easily understand the biggest thing that I'll say mostly me and Senator, you will agree, has been a concern, something that makes us upset, whatever you want to say, is the fact that we've had this court case. We got our court case set up for November, and we were hoping that the General Assembly was going to abide by the unwritten rule that you don't legislate through the budget, especially on an issue where there's ongoing litigation.
And they did initially. Nobody offered any bill during the regular General Assembly session that would have either taxed and regulated or tried to eliminate skill.
So we've been fighting this lawsuit, standing up for small business. So we ultimately found out a couple of weeks ago that, in fact, yes, the budget included policy language on skill games, marijuana, and some other things.
Not just policy language, though. They rewrote the criminal code of Virginia to include new definitions that have never been seen before, never were debated on the floor or the House or the Senate, and not even the public got to comment on it. They just snuck it in through the back.
That doesn't sound like good business practice, best business practice.
You would think.
So we've been talking for a month about, are they going to do this? To be sure they won't do this.
No way.
But they did it. Okay? So I happened to walk out of my office a couple of weeks ago when these guys and girls are in the General Assembly listening to these amendments. And so it struck me when I got to my car, I said, damn, Bill and them are still in session. I just thought about it. So I brought it up on my phone and started listening.
Which you can watch always the live feed for anybody that's interested. You can watch the House and the Senate when they're in session on the internet.
It was fate, Shep. It was fate, because not 10 seconds after I turned on the live stream to the General Assembly, I hear, and I don't even know what issue they're even talking about, but I hear Senator Deeds talking about how disappointing it is that the governor is legislating through the budget. So, of course, I immediately start texting Senator Stanley, and I'm saying, because I didn't know if it was really live at that time,
right,
or if I was hearing a replay or whatever, and I said something along the lines of,
because this is late at night at this point.
It's in the evening, late in the evening.
7:34, I'm reading the text. If you let me read them real quick.
Okay.
7:34, I'm sitting on the floor of the Senate, and I'm listening to these guys actually whine and complain and moan that the governor had legislated through the budget on 5 different amendments, and they had. And so I didn't like that either. I don't like legislating through the budget. If we're going to have a practice, let's stick to it no matter what part of the government is doing it. And so at 7:34, I get a text from Hermie that says, did he just say letting policy be put into the budget by the governor sets a dangerous precedent, but not when it's Howell? LOL. and I responded.
Senator Howell.
Yes, Senator Howell. And I said, yep, I'm stewing here about it. And then he writes back, hypocrites. And I said, you ain't kidding. And then Hermie says, be glad I ain't there. I would have reminded them of it, even if it makes no difference. And then by that time, I guess my stewing, and Hermie knows how to get me going, motivate. You know, Shep, you got the same thing. He can get you
Just
going.
like y'all got me going a couple weeks ago talking about the Virginia lottery.
He got me going. So by that time, I'm just sitting there, just stewing, listening to this, quite frankly, in my opinion, sanctimonious speeches on the floor from Democrats who I respect, about how dare the governor legislate through the budget. So I'd had enough, and Hermie lit the fire, and the rocket took off. And so I stood up and kind of castigated, scolded, or chided them about how dare they say legislating through the budget is a bad thing when they did it themselves. That select few did it themselves when it came to skill games in our litigation.
So I walked out of the office, got in the truck, turned on the live stream, and the first person that I hear talking is Senator Deeds. And I think we've got a clip of that, correct?
This is your one involvement in the production meeting. You told him.
Look, I wanted to do this last week, so I called Brad Tuesday and I said, I want people to know and try to understand why this would be frustrating to me as a citizen of the Commonwealth of Virginia and a business owner when the General Assembly has decided to try to ban games in small businesses across the Commonwealth of Virginia through the budget, which is a no-no, but yet they think it's okay for the governor to do it. Here is Senator Deeds on the Senate floor 2 weeks ago.
About that, there are a number of reasons why this amendment needs to be defeated, and that's why I would suggest that it go by for the day. Number one, it sets a terrible precedent. It's almost 3 pages of language, not a thing to do with money, except that we spend money on people in jail. I think this language is probably not germane to a budget bill. This bill was defeated in the Senate Judiciary Committee this year. If we are going to allow bills that are defeated to be stuck into the budget by the governor, it's a dangerous precedent we could be setting.
Huh.
No shit.
Wow. I'm shocked. Totally shocked.
Does he have a mirror in his house, you guess?
No, they all got broken.
No way.
There's, but believe me, we were listening to this. It was not just him Senator Hashmi, I think Senator Boysko might have stood up and said something. Senator McClellan, they were all standing up. How dare the governor legislate through the budget when they knew that on a number of occasions when the budget was sent out from the House and the Senate to the governor, that a very small handful of budget conferees, 2 or 3, maybe 4 tops, had legislated in the budget by changing the criminal code as it came to gambling and skill games, in the very thing that we were talking about and been talking about for the past 3 or 4 weeks. In that special podcast where you and I just railed on what we saw that came out, the indignation was, it was rich.
But it didn't end there.
It didn't. They kept going.
So after I hear that last clip, the next person that stands up, Senator Hashmi, she has a few things to say about legislating through the budget. Brad?
The governor's amendment is proposing to do is really to circumvent the legislative process. It's circumventing what our responsibility is in the General Assembly. It is trying to establish in the language an expansion of this partnership. It is opening the door to establish relationships with any public education center, any institute or authority, or any eligible tag grant. Now that is circumventing our role, our responsibility in the legislature.
What?
All right.
Did she just prove your point for you?
I
exactly.
have rarely agreed with Senator Hashmi, but I got to agree with her on that. Man, that is brilliant. But what is good for the goose is sauce for the gander.
That's right.
But see, it's not okay when it doesn't fit their agenda. It's okay when it fits their agenda or their special interest that they're tied to. And so you're hearing this hypocrisy. And about that time, those are the texts I'm receiving from Herm Dog over here.
But do you understand why I was angry?
He was fired up.
Yes. And I could tell through the text, the tone
Question.
that you were sending to me. And I was mad. I told you I was stewing.
And
about
I meant every word that I said, because you, Senator, we've had this ongoing dialogue about you think I should consider strongly running to be a member of the General Assembly in the new 17th Senate District.
You would be great.
And I was letting you know that, and I meant it, if I were sitting beside you in the Senate chamber when all that was going on, I would have to get up and talk about the hypocrisy of their complaining about legislating through the budget when that is the very thing that they did to us, even while, remind you, that we have an ongoing litigation on the skill game issue.
You said, be glad I ain't there. I would have reminded them of it.
I certainly would.
Question for you, Senator.
I had enough too. And I mean, it was, you lit the fire, but I was just, and the guys around me, the senators around me, sometimes they goad me to do things, but they knew exactly what my problem was. It's because I had talked to them about this. How dare we legislate through the budget? We're told never legislate through the budget. Don't do it. That's against policy. This is about procurement and spending, not about changing Virginia code, because the budget only lasts for 2 years. It's not a bill. It is a bill. It is a law, but it only has a 2-year effect. So they rewrote the code for the next 2 years. Ridiculous. But once they opened the door, they started it. And then they say, how dare the governor do what we're doing? We can only do this. But Hashmi's exactly right. In our budget language and skill games, never vetted, never debated, never put up for public comment. 4 people did it. She's exactly right. But I wish we'd be consistent.
Question. 35 amendments to the budget. Is that a lot?
That's a good number. I mean, I think I've seen one that's been more like 40-something, but that's about...
I got you.
For a first-year governor, that's pretty
All right,
big.
but before we...
But some of them were trying to put back in the gas tax holiday, 3 months. And the Democrats shot it down. Oh, no, our roads are much more important than providing 10 to 15 cents a gallon relief to the people that are sending us money that allow us to spend their money on these pet projects. And they shot that down. They shot down... In fact, Hashmi is talking about lab schools where we were trying to make more available lab schools and partnerships, the funding for those things. Yeah, he was writing it in the budget, but they were good things. They weren't hurting small businesses. They were trying to help kids get educated.
All right, let's keep it going. So you've heard from Senator Deeds. He disagrees strongly with the idea of legislating through the budget.
He does.
We've heard from
I agree with him.
Senator Hashmi.
And he adopted an Invigo Beagle, so I like him for that.
We've heard from Senator Hashmi. She strongly
Vehemently
discourages and opposes legislating through the budget and, in her words, which I like, circumventing the legislative process.
And the priority and the primacy of the legislature itself. And I like that too, but she never adopted an Invigo Beagle. So she's
then,
not as good as Creed Eats for me.
Now, last but not least, you finally couldn't stand it anymore.
I could not.
You could not stand it
I
anymore.
hit that button, request to speak, and Madam President turned to me, and with a smile on her face, she knew what was coming. And I'm kind of incredulous. I'm laughing, kind of like, cannot believe you guys.
Chair recognizes Senator Stanley, a gentleman from Franklin County.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to this budget amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I would tell you, Madam President, speaking more towards just the general overview of what I'm seeing when it comes to these budget amendments. Madam President, it is amazing to me that I hear from my friends on the other side of the aisle how they hate that the governor would try to legislate in the budget. How dare he try to legislate in our budget, which is our budget that we passed. And at the same time, this body and the body across the hall has legislated in the budget by amending our criminal code and creating bills that have never been considered by the body, never been proposed and then out in transparent ways for the public to look at, never heard in a committee, never voted up or down or had public comment.
Hearing everybody say, no.
I came into this chamber and I heard so often, we do not legislate in the budget. But that's exactly what we do. And then we're really mad when the governor, how dare he legislate in this budget? Well, you know what? I think when this General Assembly opens the door, when a handful of legislators legislate in the budget and change the criminal code or the civil code, when you've opened that door, the horse is out of the barn. So we either need to be dedicated to ourselves that, if we don't propose legislation or legislation is killed, that we don't stick it back in the budget. Otherwise, I think it is disingenuous, Madam President, when we sit on this floor or probably across the hall in the House and say, how dare the governor legislate in the budget when this is exactly what we do? You've done it even in cases where there's ongoing litigation this year. Now, make your arguments that, hey, we just don't agree with this, but don't use one of the arguments to be, I can't believe the governor's legislating the budget, because you and the people that have drafted this bill, this budget, this 2-year biennium budget, have legislated in the budget just as bad. Thank you, Madam President.
And to try to break it down, what they did by inserting and changing the code to your words, they didn't allow you or anybody else to have any discussion or break out skill games or marijuana or anything and have a separate discussion on that. Y'all were asked as legislators to simply vote yes or no on the entire budget because they knew
before it went to the governor. Yeah.
Let's be clear. They did this on purpose, knowing that legislators needed to get this budget signed to get their localities funded,
right,
and other things.
Absolutely right. And you add to it, they put the governor in a box. They offered him something that said, don't touch this chicanery, this shenanigans we're going to put in this budget language and changing the code when it comes to skill games. And it was as a priority of the main budget writers in the House and Senate. So he was in a box where he may not have agreed with that amendment, thought it was not well timed, thinks that he's a party in the litigation as a defendant, that it probably should be decided by the judicial system, not through budget language. But he had no choice, because if he had changed that budget language relating to skill game, even the amended the effective date, then he put at risk every amendment that he had proposed that came back.
I had another question for you, Senator.
Yeah.
All right. On the local level, we have a budget process. It goes through budget committee. We finalize the budget. We have to advertise it. We have public input before we vote the final vote and adopt the budget, which will start July 1. Mm-hmm. Doesn't sound like that takes place at the state level.
Well, it does in the appropriations and the finance committees for each respective body. In the consideration of legislation, and the budget is debated there at that time. But this issue never was. They tried at one point to try to put a skill game amendment on Bryce Reeves's bill.
And that's what I was getting to.
But they never did it. So this never came up as a part of what the budget discussions were.
Because they just did a up or down vote,
yeah.
backdoored it.
Well, and so at this point in time, I would have voted no because there were other reasons. They took out the Hyde Amendment that protects taxpayer money, prevents taxpayer money from going to fund public abortions, publicly paid abortions, of any kind of funding for health care for those that receive Medicaid or Medicare from the state. So and they had reduced the amount of the scholarship tax credit of a bill that I wrote 8-9 years ago with Bob McDonnell when he was in office. There are many reasons to vote no, but many of those legislators had no choice, and they were told, you vote against this budget, we're going to yank out funding here, funding there. And so they put them in a box.
School teachers,
right,
firefighters,
right, and so
police officers. They got
just as I said, never got to debate the issue, never got vetted, never had public response, never had owner-operators of these legal skill games, such as Hermie or the people like Hermie in those stores that have them, to come down and say, this makes no sense. Never had a lawyer look at it and say, man, this doesn't pass the smell test. This is unconstitutional too, or this doesn't apply, or what have you.
You know,
It
'cause-
was, and quite frankly, I'm going to tell you something right now. There is a budget writer, works in legislative services. I won't say her name. She came to me and said on Friday, 2 weeks ago, "You owe me a spaghetti dinner." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You owe me a spaghetti dinner." And I thought, because she had written the Beagle bills with me, had amended them, had done such a great, and she's one of the best legislative services lawyers. So I was thinking, why would you want a spaghetti dinner on Beagles? I said, "I'll just take you out for a steak because, you saved all those dogs." And she said, "That's not it." I said, "What?" And she said, "You made that statement that this amendment was nothing but a bunch of word spaghetti." And I looked at her, and she said her staff jokingly taped that title up all over her office. And she was laughing about it. And I said, "You wrote that piece of crap?" Because I wasn't going to say it was nice. At first you're like, "Wow, did I embarrass you?" And she said, well, she was given it by someone high up in the budget process. And that basically it came from outside sources. So she confirmed what we thought we knew. So outside sources brings this to a budget writer who then gives it to a lawyer and says, "Put this in the budget." That is the trail. No public comment, no vetting, no nothing. Put this in. This is in. And this is what we get. So that to me just proved what we always thought. But so, Hermie, it's confirmed. Other forces were at work to try to mess with our litigation and to mess with skill, legitimate, legalized skill games in the Commonwealth of Virginia. My dad taught me to stand up to bullies, to not pick on somebody smaller, but to be there with them and to guard them.
I guess my point is if you're going to run against Louise Lucas, your advertising line can't be, "I went along with them on this and that and the other." I would think you would want to differentiate yourself from the long-standing politicians that think it's okay and make it about themselves and not about the people that they're supposed to be representing.
Well, in that race, if you're going to run and you're going to beat Louise Lucas, to quote Louise Lucas, you're going to have to fight like a mother. Jesus.
I thought we'd handled all that last week.
I've been dying to say
That's
that.
a great time to take a break. I hope we're going to bleep that out.
And now I'll sponsor.
We want to say that Pace-O-Matic.
I just had to.
Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, and convenience stores thriving. We'll be right back. We'll have a Turning Left moment. I'll update you on my sponsors for Turning Left. And then, according to you and Brad,
Wrestling.
We're going to talk wrestling. We'll be right back. Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers. And we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at Exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on Exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina. That's Exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers. And Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler's sidekick on this podcast. But when I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. We make sure we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer. Give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure that we are the lawyers that you swear by and not at.
Who's going to take care of your family if something happens to you? What would they do without your income? If you don't have a plan, you need to go to GoliathLife.com. Get a quick quote for more than 20 carriers. You don't even have to leave the house. If you need a medical exam, they'll send somebody to your house or office. You're in total control. You pick the rates, you pick the payments, you pick the terms. You're in total control, but it gives you and your family peace of mind. What if something happens to your income? Hurry to GoliathLife.com.
And we're back. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm cooling back down.
Oh, don't do that. I'm telling you what, that was a great last segment. I love it. See, the greatest thing, we may do a little production value here and there, but the wonderful thing about this podcast is we just speak our minds, just like we do when we're on the phone with each other. Yep. This is no different, and that's what makes it original.
It's raw.
Interesting to me. So hope it is to our listeners. And it's very informative. Hopefully we're educating them. At the same time, we're getting them active. That's an important thing.
So turning left, we'll do a short little bit on that. But I do want to say, I've got 2 sponsors.
Official.
I'm this close.
Chad, I was going to ask for the drum roll.
See, now he's using his 2 fingers, his thumb and his index finger, and it's about 2 inches apart. Now, in last week's episode,
wait a minute, that's 8
he
inches.
used both hands.
That's 8 inches.
He's seen that measurement before.
That's 8 inches.
Senator, he's seen that measurement before.
Last
That's 8
week,
inches.
it was like he was describing a fish. He was using both hands.
That's some part.
So at least we're closing the gap.
So one of them, I will tell you, is a product in the, say, 5-hour energy space that has reached out to me about a personal
you don't need that
personal service agreement that we could also not only potentially have them sponsoring the turning left moment, but also potentially on the Sadler Stanley Racing modified as well. But that's been this is a guy who's now the chief marketing officer of this company who I went to school with in Chapel Hill. And he's got a lot of athletes on board and things of that nature, and we're moving the process along. It's been pretty easy to get to we're in the negotiation period, and what they want from me, what they want from us, what's on the card, this, that, and the other. So I'm getting there.
So he's literally bringing the juice.
But this other one, the one that I'm really closer, I've never had a sponsor negotiation be so taxing. I've had to encounter overnight stays with this person. I've had multiple private meetings.
Wow.
Intimate time together with this person. Really having to use all the resources that God has given me.
Angie is sponsoring the podcast.
A lot of talent.
to get this done. And I am working hard. This person is even potentially telling falsehoods to his or her significant other as to where she might be going to come negotiate with me. It's unbelievable. But I'm not ready to announce anything yet. I've got a few more meetings, a few more buttons to push, you might say, to get this done.
That
Angie
tantalizing and dangerous at the same time.
Angie always said Hermie was good at teasing.
Wow. All right. So we're almost there still.
Almost there.
Maybe by the 25th episode. What is the 25th anniversary? Is that silver, gold?
Yes, silver.
Maybe by the silver anniversary of our 25th episode, those fingers that are 8 inches, according to him. Might be down to 1.5 inches.
Yep.
Or might have been closed. That you closed the deal.
I'm close. It's just taking a little bit longer.
You know, this just reminds me of a famous Roseanne Barr joke that she used to say. She said, "Why do men love reading maps? Because only a man can think that 1 inch equals 5 miles." That's your fingers.
Listen, I think I'm close enough to go ahead and not on the sports beverage piece, but the second one, I think I'm close enough to where, I mean, this person and I have been almost one in recent weeks to get this done. I think I'm close enough to go ahead and announce.
Okay.
Do we need a drum roll maybe put in here for,
I mean, has the attorney reviewed the contract?
This attorney has not. This attorney doesn't know.
Well,
what
this
the hell
partner in
he's
the
talking about.
podcast hadn't reviewed the Graziano contract either.
I mean, who's vetted this?
I'll have to check the bylaws to see how that happens.
He must be writing a big check, Hermie, because Senator gives him a hell of a plug every time. It
Love me
must be a
some
big
Tom
check.
Graziano.
It's got to be a big check.
Look, at least he pulls the trigger. That
That's
has
true.
been consistent.
I just want I want y'all to keep in mind how much time I have spent schmoozing this sponsor for the Turning Left moment of this show.
Okay. Are we going to hear it, or are you just going to keep
Are
it to
y'all
the next
ready?
episode?
I'm ready.
All right. One of the sponsors on the Turning Left moment, I just got the verbiage. Hermie Sadler's Turning Left moment on leaning right and turning left with Sadler and the Senator is sponsored by Laura Stanley and Vista Installations. What are y'all laughing at?
Oh, wow.
That's where she's been.
Yeah. Intimate.
She's going a whole week.
Can I finish? Can I finish the read?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, my.
Turning Left is sponsored by Laura Stanley and Vista Installations.
Vista Installations.
Laura has been running a successful window and door installation company and babysitting politicians for over 12 years. So we welcome Laura Stanley, Vista Installations, to one of the sponsors to Turning Left. And I have put in some quality, compromising time.
At what
together
level did she come in at?
To look heavy. She came in strong.
Platinum level.
She came in strong. She came in strong.
Wow.
So, Bill,
Yeah.
thank you
You're welcome.
for sharing your wife with me.
Sure.
And the Turning Left moment.
She always
sponsor.
says she
I'm
loves
speechless.
Hermie, and now I know more.
I will
guess.
say I'm speechless.
I don't know what to say. But Vista
You can say-
Installations is a great company.
You can say
and
welcome. You can welcome. them.
Welcome, Vista Installations. You're already in my life, and now you're in every part of my life.
Is it Vista or Vista?
It's Vista.
I mean, he said Vista. You say Vista.
Oh, my God, Laura. All right. That's a good one. All right. Yeah, the great sponsor.
You as red
going
as
on
your
the-
shirt.
She going on the car, too?
Oh, absolutely. I told you. She came strong.
Right on the hood.
She brought the heat.
All right, let's get to our turning left
She
moment.
brought the heat.
Are you going to put her right on the hood?
Well, the good news is
Hey, Shep. Hey,
the good news
watch your
is
mouth.
Put her right on the
as
hood.
Senator Stanley often says, I'm in charge of the race team.
That's right.
Yeah.
He does say that.
So
And I'm in charge. Oh,
you
I
can
was
kick
in
her
charge
off.
of this.
You can kick her off the podcast if you want to.
But she ain't coming off
Hey,
the car.
Are you kidding me?
Would you like for me to tell her that you have blocked Vista's sponsorship of
No,
Okay.
no, please don't.
I'd be glad to.
No, we're good. We're good.
I mean, because quite honestly, the time I spent with her, I mean, it wasn't all that bad either way. Even if I quote unquote come up dry on the sponsorship, I mean,
Angie, give me a call.
it's been somewhat.
Angie, call me when you listen to this.
Didn't you talk to my wife a couple weeks ago on a personal matter?
I did, absolutely.
Okay, well.
Yeah, offer some legal advice, and always love talking.
That's
to
what
her.
I was
She's
talking
great.
to Laura about.
Clearly, the lines are blurred.
You needed some doors.
All right, so what are we going to do now?
Well, 2 weeks ago you said it might be the last podcast. Wiz might really be the last podcast. Boy, I'm going to tell you now, when you get him fired up, you see?
Man,
Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Look, I think you should be proud because to me, it's whatever we got to do to bring sponsors to the table, right?
Yeah, and Vista Installations does all the installs for Lowe's, windows and doors. And they do a great job. They have a huge growing business in North Carolina. It's she's got great employees, and she runs a great business. And
Laura's very passionate about this show.
I'm just glad. I'm glad Memory Makers is not sponsoring.
I was hoping it was Memory Makers.
I mean, damn, Herm. I hope he didn't talk to Terry about sponsoring this show. Shit. I'm texting her right now.
Put the phone block on. Man. Oh, that's a good one. All right, so turning left.
Look, all
by Vista Installations and Laura Stanley.
All the time that I put in, I'm not going to send the podcast a bill for my personal time
I
because
that.
I kind of
it was a trade-off.
Wasn't bad.
It was a trade-off.
Wasn't bad.
Man, we are close. I would agree that you, Hermie, and I are very close. I just didn't know this close.
All right, so turning left.
If anybody else wants to sponsor, who do they call? I mean,
don't call Ghostbusters.
I mean, do they just pick between y'all two? If somebody else wants to
It's my
sponsor,
turn, I guess. I mean,
you can go after me.
Angie's got the UPS store. She's got the faux show. She's got she's got a lot of sponsorship potential there that I could explore. So
Missy's got a lot to explore.
Really.
Good luck with that.
Business-wise.
Are we even talking about racing?
Let me clarify. Business-wise.
I hear you, Shep. Go on, boy.
Pace-O-Matic plays games. Where's that damn thing you read to get us out a couple weeks ago?
Put in a donut, Chad.
Unfortunately, we do not have an update on the Smart Modified Tour because as we cut this podcast, the race will actually be tomorrow night. So we hope that we get back to racing in the Smart Modified Tour with success. When the Smart Modified Tour took a break, we were on fire. Top second at South Boston, pole at Caraway prior to even South Boston. Of course, a big win at Franklin County, right in your backyard.
Leading the points.
And Hermie went and got me a copy of the trophy, which I've placed in our living room of half of the house that I'm going to get after this sponsorship.
And you didn't know it at the time,
thrilled. Yeah.
But I felt bad about the extent that I had to go through to get this sponsorship on the show. So that was kind of a
Yeah, I know. I got it. Yeah. When you least expect it, expect it.
You got a plastic. Hey, you got a plastic trophy. He got the sponsor.
He got the gold trophy.
Yeah. So, and look, you mentioned earlier we want to give a little shout out to SRX, the Superstar Racing Experience. I actually watched a couple weeks ago. They were at Five Flags down in Pensacola. That race was won by Elio Castroneves. And then, this past
and Ryan Newman
top
was
three,
P3.
finished third. Yeah.
That was great.
And
I texted him and congratulated him.
They've been to South Boston.
Now you got to do it in North Wilkesboro in one of our cars.
Yeah. So they're in South Boston after that and having great success with that.
I love
series.
that series, by the way. They do the heat racing like you see in the normal short tracks. They're at the normal short tracks. They invert the field after the first run, and then they take the averages, and that's how the lineup is. And then they do a 75-lapper, which is not too long, not too short, and the race cars are fun to watch, and the racetrack is even better. So hats off to them. I think they've got it. It's on on a weekend night, and it's one of the greatest things. Like you were talking about in Pensacola, where I was born. That's a great track, but we were able, even though we had no NASCAR, we were able to watch the SRX series, the truck series, which was in Nashville at the dirt tracks. And my son Chandler and I, then we finished up by watching Bowman Gray, where our guy, Jonathan Brown, won the first 50-lap race, got tangled up before the second 50-lapper started and had to switch his cars and didn't finish as well, but still put an effort out there. But Jonathan's driving great, and we get Caraway on Wednesday, a night race, weekday night race, and then we take another break until we go back to North Wilkesboro for the first time. Rubber's hitting that asphalt in 20-some-odd years and decades.
August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
And then we're going to and we'll hopefully have a second driver. Hermie said he's not going to be one of those. But
you just told me it's going to be Ryan Newman, so when are y'all going to let me know that?
Well, you run the race team. Well, when were you going to let me know that you got sponsorship from my friggin' wife? I mean,
Right here on the show.
I just hope you like those father-son trips because you're probably going to be taking some more.
every other weekend.
We finished? Because
No.
I get to read again that the Turning Left moment is sponsored by Laura Stanley in Vista Installations. Laura has been running a successful window and door installation company and babysitting politicians for over 12 years.
I knew she wrote that too. Chad, come over here and get the knife out of my back.
That's a wrap.
Well, there you go. What an interesting turning left moment that was. I don't even know where we go from here.
You see,
That
you
was a
and,
left turn.
you and Brad Tuesday are spending a lot of time figuring out how to roast me on this
Right,
podcast.
right, we are.
So don't think Hermie can't return the favor in double roast.
Oh, man, that was
Hermie is a fighter.
yeah. You got to keep one eye open at all times. Back to the wall. But that's great, and a great sponsorship, and really thrilled for you that you finally brought something home.
Are you thrilled for me?
Well, if I
Platinum
compare it to
level. Are you
Tom
thrilled for
Graziano
me?
now, I got to go with
Wait a minute.
Vista.
Are you thrilled for me that I scored
I am.
A sponsor
a sponsor?
I am. I'm
at
I'm
a
thrilled.
platinum level.
I'm. Yeah. It's.
I mean, it's heavy.
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 I'm not even going to bring it up when I get home tonight. I'm just going to let her listen to the podcast.
You're not going to call her until the minute after we get finished.
No. What do I say? I mean, where do I begin?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Where do I
Welcome to the team.
Yeah. So that was a good one. That was really good. I'm not going to live that down forever.
No.
Man.
Okay, so now it's y'all's turn.
This is going to be like the Alan Joseph podcast where it never sees the light of day. You guys. Yeah. So
So here we're going to talk about wrestling.
You've totally
So I'll
taken-
end the turning left moment by saying, "Woo!"
What a great segue. Now, you and I have always talked, and your history in NASCAR and being a sports analyst is just so well known, but also, too, you dipped your toes in the professional wrestling waters, and you've got a lot of friends in the professional wrestling business to this day. We've had, of course, our boss, Jeff Jarrett, Double J, Slap Nuts, is a big supporter and friend of yours, and I've been honored to know him and get to know him. And he's moved on to WWE all
He
of a
is
sudden.
currently VP of live events for World Wrestling Entertainment.
Do you think that had anything to do with Vince McMahon taking a reduced role?
No, that
due to the controversy?
Jeff was hired prior to that. I think Jeff's role had more to do with Triple H. He's had some health issues and needed to spend time at home and try to get healthy. And then his wife, of course, Stephanie McMahon, went home with him, but she's now coming back. She's the interim CEO, which I'm not sure what all that means. I think, but I think they'll have a fight on their hands if they ever try to get rid of Vince McMahon. I think he'll be hard to.
And Vince even showed up at Saturday night or Friday night?
SmackDown.
Raw?
Friday night.
SmackDown.
And,
He didn't really say anything,
but he's still in charge of those things too. That content, and so he's still there. But whatever's going on there is going on there. It's kind of crazy. But so how did you get into the wrestling biz, and how did you? Obviously, you were a fan of it growing up, like we all were. I mean, Chief J. Strongbow was one of my favorites. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was one of my favorites. Mid-Atlantic Wrestling was like the wrestling event venue.
The Crockett's.
Here. Yeah, in Virginia. I mean, they'd come to your area. You go see them. We saw them at the Scope when we were deployed down in Virginia Beach area. How did you get to wrestling?
I'll tell you two of my first memories of wrestling as a kid. My dad used to take Elliot and I all the time when Elliot would be 5 and I was 10, 11. We were fans back in the Crockett days, NWA days. But I'll tell you two stories that I remember even from being that young. I remember a time when the NWA came to Greensville County High School gym right in Emporia. And I don't think Elliot went that night. That was before Elliot was probably even old enough to go. But a guy named Richard Short, Dick Short, was a friend of my dad's, and he used to love wrestling and went with us also.
What was his name again?
Dick Short. That's a real person, but
At least he didn't say last name first.
yeah, that's right.
What used to happen when he was in like elementary school and they call you up for the first day of roll? I bet he was great. I mean, I'm sure he didn't get picked on at all.
We went to the Greensville County High School gym to watch NWA. The main event of the night was Ric Flair against Wahoo McDaniel. That was the main event. So I remember going to the show, and Wahoo and Ric Flair, because they both, back in those days, bled even when they didn't want to, because they had cut
So many
themselves
scars, yeah.
so many times over the years. You could go pluck them in the head and they'd start bleeding. They bled all over the gym, which I remember kind of being scared about seeing that. But the most memorable thing of that night was the fact that we used to have a place right behind on the back lot where Sadler Brothers Oil Company is now. It used to be a self-service gas station called the Gas Boy. It was my dad's station. Kind of, you could just go up and pump your own gas kind of thing. And this was maybe 1980, 81, something like that. So like my dad still likes to do to this day, we would oftentimes ride around, just look at properties and locations and things and check on our businesses. Well, after the show was over, we're driving through the Gas Boy, and we saw, there was a long Cadillac pulled up at the Gas Boy getting gas. And a guy stepped out of the car to get gas that looked like Ric Flair to me. So I said, Daddy, there's Ric Flair. He's getting gas at the Gas Boy. So we went and made a loop, came back, pulled up in the parking lot at the Gas Boy, and sure enough, Ric Flair is getting gas at the Gas Boy. Guess who was in the passenger seat of the car with him? Wahoo McDaniel. So I'm thinking,
Kayfabe.
Why did y'all don't like each other and hate each other and made each other bleed? Are y'all riding in the car together? So I knew what was going on kind of way before Vince McMahon ever told us. So that was my first
That it was fake?
memory of that. And the next, and Shep knows one of these guys. I remember going to the Richmond Coliseum one night with a group of friends. Elliot went. I remember Maxie Moore from Emporia went. A whole group of people went. And I don't remember who he was fighting, but I remember Tully Blanchard was in the main event. Well, one of the people that I don't think went with us, but was in the group we were sitting with, is Broman Carroll.
From Broadnax, Virginia.
Broadnax, Virginia. Keith Carroll, a.k.a. Broman. Well, part of most wrestling matches, there are different parts of the match where the referee is distracted and doesn't see, maybe when a guy like Tully Blanchard, who would be a heel, a bad guy in this match, maybe do something to break the rules a little bit.
Thumb in the eye.
Something. What I
Or an
remember,
object.
Tully Blanchard, the referee's distracted or out, whatever. Tully Blanchard grabs a set of brass knuckles and puts them on and hits his opponent, knocks him out. This legitimately
Crazy.
makes Broman Carroll, who is legitimately crazy in his own right, he's not part of the show, but he jumps the rail, goes in the ring, grabs the brass knuckles, and nails Tully Blanchard with the brass knuckles. I mean, legit nails Tully Blanchard, knocks him out.
Pow.
So not only has Broman Carroll jumped the fence and got in the ring before security could get him, grabbed the knuckles and popped Tully Blanchard. It's 10,000 people in the Richmond Coliseum. Well, the match is over because Broman Carroll has knocked out Tully Blanchard. So they put him in jail. Oh yeah, put him in
Real
jail.
story.
Real story.
Wow.
A guy in our group got actually put in jail for knocking out Tully Blanchard before the end of the NWA title match at the Richmond Coliseum.
So he didn't have the attorney that Brett Griffin had when you guys were in Myrtle Beach?
Myrtle Beach. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brett Griffin, we arranged that thanks to
He didn't get out a half hour later?
Russell Long and Associates in Myrtle Beach. Yeah, Brett made it back to the party, back to Crocodile Rock's piano ball. He was back within 30 minutes.
So, you grew up with wrestling like I did.
Grew
loved
up.
it. Some
Elliot and I loved it. We
some
had
of the
people
greats of all
take us-
time ever wrestling right here.
Did you ever go see it at St. Paul's College?
I don't remember.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember. But I grew up a fan. My first real entry into it, as far as doing any what I would call business, was much later in life. I became friends with the Hebner twins, Dave and Earl Hebner, who live right here in Richmond. And I started going to shows, going backstage at shows. Ultimately, Vince McMahon, WWE, sponsored me in a couple of races. I remember I drove a SummerSlam car at Bristol years and years and years ago. And then eventually the partnership with The Rock that we've talked about before. And that was in the mid-'90s when I started actually, doing business type things with people in the industry. But I grew up a fan. I watched every Saturday morning when they would tape, in the CBS studios and in Raleigh and other places, and little studio shows they did with Ric Flair, Paul Jones, Johnny Weaver, Junkyard Dog, all those guys. I mean,
Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yeah.
I can remember in St. Paul's College, we had wrestling to come through, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce down there in Lawrenceville. And this one particular loop they were coming through, you had Wahoo and Greg the Hammer Valentine working a program together.
The Hammer.
And they were supposed to have an Indian strap match. And they got there.
Where they tie each other together by one arm.
Yes, by the leather strap. Well, they got there, they didn't have the strap. So I can remember them going up to Sledge in Barkley, which is a little local hardware store at the time. And Bud Barkley went down and met him. He did not have a leather strap, but they were able to get enough dog leashes that they looped together to have that Indian death strap match down there that night. That was probably one of the first live events that I went to. My father was the president of the chamber at the time, who actually went down to Mid-Atlantic taping in Charlotte and went down and negotiated. My father negotiated those contracts for them to come to St. Paul. So because of my father's involvement, I was allowed to take drinks into the locker room during the show, which was kind of cool. But a little bit to what Hermie was talking about, you would go in one locker room, all the wrestlers would be in one locker room playing cards. When right before their match, they would go to the other locker room in the gym and then walk out a separate entrance. But it was kind of heartbreaking a little bit to see them together like that. But also you realize that it was entertaining.
And you talk about when your wife gets together with your business partner to create an advertising program, kind of.
I know you want to talk about my involvement in wrestling, but Shep went from his early days to ultimately being in charge of the United Wrestling Federation, UWF, which was my venture that we ran live events for Impact Wrestling. And I'm jumping way ahead, but we're going to go back. But I want to say one of the funniest phone calls I ever got. A lot of times we used to run shows based on where I had to be for my TV duties. I remember one time we were up in Philadelphia we ran a series of shows up around Philadelphia, the old ECW arena, some other places.
Crazy spot.
And I remember after a Saturday night show, I had to leave and drive to Pocono because I was doing the speed stage pre-race shows for the Cup Series at that time. So I drove to Pocono to do my TV show on Sunday morning. And I left them all in Philadelphia or somewhere around that area on Saturday night. And I remember Sunday morning, I'm getting up, getting ready to go do TV, and my phone's ringing off the hook. It's Shep, it's Earl Hebner, it's Brian Hebner, it's Shep, and I'm in a production meeting. I can't answer the phone and this, that, and the other. And finally, I get on the phone with one of them, and they tell me one of the guys we had on that loop that weekend was Sabu, crazy Sabu. Well, come to find out, the night before, he had broke into or vandalized the snack machine
at the motel,
trying to get a snack out of the snack machine instead of putting a quarter in it. And then the next thing was maybe the next morning,
Sabu was in a snafu.
They were trying to get everybody checked out. Well, Sabu nobody would answer the door to his room, and they're all calling me Hermie, and I'm trying to do a TV show in Pocono. What do we do? Sabu won't come to the door. And I finally answered the phone. I said, what the hell can I do from Pocono? Y'all are in Philadelphia. Well, what do we do? I said, call the police and get him to knock the door down. And if he's alive, take him to jail. If he's dead, call the coroner. I don't know what else to tell you.
But don't call me again.
But I can't help you. So I'm sitting there doing a production meeting for a live TV show on Fox, and they're trying to tell me Sabu is unresponsive.
You know, Senator, we had two.
What, he had too many nipchees or a nipchee over it?
We had two.
Shep was in charge of all that.
Exactly. We had two of what I would call really, really, really good shows. One was at the old ECW arena. You can go to YouTube right now, and I encourage the listeners to do so. In the search bar, if you put in UWF/TNA chairs, you will see that during one of the matches, we had a six-way Falls Count Anywhere. And, of course, ECW, that arena is crazy. It's a crazy atmosphere. We had the Dudleys. We had Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. We had James Storm and Chris Harrison.
America's Most Wanted.
America's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
We had those three tag teams working, where they're all out in the audience fighting. Bubba Ray finally gets one of the other guys in the ring, and he asked, politely, as Bubba Ray would do, a spectator to hand him a chair. He wanted to, hit the other wrestler with the chair. Well, all of a sudden, all of the fans in the arena started throwing their metal folding chairs like Frisbees into the ring. Hundreds and hundreds of chairs where we had to stop the match, end the night. It was crazy. And it's on YouTube right now. Really is still, if I'm not mistaken, one of their most viewed wrestling clips.
All right, let's unpack this a little bit, roll it back a little bit. How did you get from, you ran some cars, sponsored by WWF at the time, I guess. How did you get to the arena? Was it the first time when you and Sterling Marlin showed up at a wrestling match? Was that kind of the beginning of this business relationship that you've now told a story about?
I mentioned through the early to mid 90s, going to shows and hanging out with the Hebners and things of that nature. And one of the first people that I made friendships with, I'm talking about a real friendship. I'm not talking about go out and hang out. I'm talking about a real friendship with Jeff Jarrett. Jeff and I, we got married to close to the same time. Our wives were fairly close in age, which God bless his wife, first wife, Jill. She passed away with breast cancer very young. He had three daughters, just like me, and our daughters were close in age, and they were friends. The daughters became friends. We went on trips together, vacations together. And so, I had acquaintances in the business, but in Jeff, I had a friend, because that was kind of a personal thing. And then when Jeff decided to start TNA Wrestling with his dad, they're the ones that actually got me involved, going and actually participating in shows and promoting. And because Jeff called me and said, look, we've got this crazy idea. My dad and I are going to start TNA Wrestling. We're going to do Wednesday night pay-per-views for $9.95. And his ask of me was, can you bring some of your NASCAR friends over and help us try to get some mainstream media coverage by being there? So the first couple shows that we did, I went. Toby Keith was there with Jeff. Sterling Marlin went with me. Austin Dillon went and did a couple things. We had a bunch of guys over the course of time that went, and I ultimately, at some point in time, did a series of appearances to be a feud build up with R-Truth, maybe K Quick they called him at the time.
No, it was R-Truth.
R-Truth. And ultimately did a pay-per-view match with him in Nashville at the Civic Auditorium.
Where you wrestled.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, so we have a clip, one of your early appearances with Sterling Marlin. We found that. We did a lot of digging on YouTube, and we have it queued up right now, so I'm going to ask Brad Tuesday to roll the clip of Hermie Sadler first getting in the ring with Sterling Marlin. It started out just supposed to be an interview, but it escalated quickly after that.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the 1993 Busch Series Rookie of the Year, Hermie Sadler, and the current NASCAR Winston Cup points leader, Sterling Marlin. Sterling, right now you're standing on top of the mountain in the Winston Cup Point Series. You're the leader. You got a race this Sunday.
Yeah, we're looking forward to going out to Sonoma, California. Went to Virginia a couple weeks ago, had a good road course test, so we're anxious to get out to California.
Sterling is taking this pretty seriously.
On top of the mountain right now as the Winston Cup points leader, a lot of pressure.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we got about a 100-point lead, and hope we'll just keep racing hard and try to get us more wins, more top fives, and try to win this championship.
All right. Hermie Sadler.
What is
Stop everything!
Interruption from, that's K-Crush.
You know what? I am sick to my stomach. I'm sick and tired of hearing about some damn race car driver.
Me too.
Thank you, K-Crush.
This is professional wrestling. You guys call yourself athletes? You got no damn business inside a professional wrestling ring. I am an athlete. You're looking at an athlete. My kind are athletes. My grandmama can do what you do.
Why don't you shut up just 1 second?
Hermie Sadler, everybody.
Hermie Sadler.
He's fired up again.
That's all I want to hear. How do you expect anybody here to take you serious looking like you look? You look like a real athlete.
Coming from a NASCAR driver, I love it. I love it.
Apparently you don't know just who we are. But there are lots of NASCAR fans in Huntsville, Alabama.
You got that right.
Testify! And they know we're athletes.
You know what? Damn you and damn Alabama.
I'm appalled.
To professional wrestling.
And it got on after that, didn't it? Good thing you didn't say damn Emporier.
Hermie will get fired up.
That is the very first TNA show that Jeff Jarrett and his dad ever did. The inaugural show. And I remember going to Huntsville, Alabama for that show. Sterling came over, and Sterling was great. We had a ball doing that. And Jeff had a lot of people on that show. I mean, Ricky Steamboat and Jackie Fargo, and had a crowd of people on that first show. And that was the kind of the kickoff to the Wednesday night pay-per-views that TNA started doing in its inception.
And, you know, of course, Jeff's not involved with that promotion anymore, but they just celebrated their 20-year anniversary.
Yep.
And the second show we did, Senator, that I thought was monumental for us was actually right here in Richmond, Capital Punishment. We did it over at the Siegel Center. I want to say maybe 8,000 people. We had a bunch of legends come in. I know Hermie had Steamboat. You had Ron and John from WWE, the APA. Mm-hmm. We had a really, really good show that night. That was great. And Earl Hebner got his head shaved that night by his son, Brian.
Now, in that incident, if you let the tape go longer, we stopped it. You got rescued by somebody. Somebody came in the ring to defend you. You and this guy, K-Crush, started getting into it.
Yeah, R-Truth, yeah.
It's K-Crush. You didn't even listen.
Well, Nance R-Truth.
Yeah. You got to pay attention, Chet. That's why we got you here.
And he came to your rescue, but who was that?
I don't remember.
I can't remember. It was somebody's son. It was a famous wrestler's son, and I can't remember.
Oh, Brian Christopher.
Okay.
That would have been Jerry the King Lawler's son.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
There you go. Jerry Lawler's son.
And he's no longer with us either.
That's right.
So, from there, it takes off. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now, you're just a kind of a marquee player.
Yep.
Haven't gotten in the ring yet.
We turned
it in.
It ended up being like a 3 or 4 week build up. I went to all these shows before we ended up having a match in Nashville. I remember.
More intimate time you had to spend.
More intimate time
to get it to happen.
To get something to happen.
So, where do you go from there? You start making these kind of semi-regular appearances for Jeff Jarrett?
I went for really off and on for the first 6-8 months, going to not every week, but and it worked out okay schedule wise for me because we were doing these shows on Wednesday night. So it didn't really interfere with my racing schedule or my TV schedule or whatnot on the weekends. So we started going in. We were doing the normal Wednesday night shows, most of them at the Nashville Fairgrounds. In the old Fairgrounds building. They turned that into a makeshift studio. And it's like a TV studio, held about 800 people. In fact, that's where they had Shep was talking about the Slammiversary 20-year anniversary show. They did it back at the Nashville Fairgrounds.
Where that great track is, the short
Yep.
track is too.
Yep.
So, Shep, at this point in time, are you involved or?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
So let's move forward a little bit. Where do you go from here? You're doing this with Double J. What goes on next? How do you get in the ring, and then how do you become an owner or co-owner of a wrestling league?
Well, ultimately, as far as my in-ring part, what you heard, the beginning parts with K-Crush ended up being, after a couple weeks of back and forth and banter, we actually had a match on pay-per-view, just he and I, in the Nashville Civic Auditorium. About a month after.
Hermie has been on paper, kind of like Mike Tyson. He's been on pay-per-view. He's headlining it.
No. But so we had about a 10-minute match.
So what happened?
I beat his ass. What do you mean what happened?
Did you have formal training? I mean, how did you get in you're in shape, let's assume.
Well, back then I was.
I was talking about the past. I want to talk about today. Yeah. Although you're looking good.
If I'd have, about 1995, I'd have got, a multi-ideal from Laura. Nice now I had to beg. Now I had to beg for 2 shows.
So let's talk about your first match. What happened? You're always talking about your first.
I remember the match being okay. He actually pinned me in the ring, but he used the ropes to get unfair leverage to pin me in the match. So the referee counted 1, 2, 3 for him. But then the decision got overturned when they realized that he had cheated.
Really?
You asked me what happened.
Did you file an appeal before the Supreme Court and took a couple weeks? Or
luckily, somebody in TNA saw it and made the right call right there on the spot.
Right there and there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How come we can't find that bit of footage? We looked everywhere. Have you buried that?
Okay. I've watched it
So
recently.
you get the kick out, you get the reversal here. How does the match end?
Well, that's how it ended. It was about a 10-minute.
So it was a draw.
No.
I
won. He got disqualified.
Yeah, he won by DQ.
He was DQ'd.
K-Crush actually pinned me, but
he
had his feet up on the ropes.
Okay.
Because a man of my strength and ability could have easily kicked out had he not had unfair leverage on the ropes.
And this seems to be a perfect time maybe to bring in Hermie's answering machine because we got a question about you and your wrestling career, and specifically a question about what you may or may not have been able to do or have done in the ring. So right now we're going to play Hermie's answering machine.
Hi, this is Hermie. I can't come to the phone right now because, believe it or not, I'm on the phone with that damn Bill Stanley. You can't leave him a message because he thinks it's cool to have his answering machine full. So I got him on the phone. I got to take advantage of it. He won't stop talking about how awesome his hairdo is. Jesus Lord. So please leave a message after the beep.
Hey Hermie, this is Joanne. Since you were once a pro wrestler and guys like Ric Flair had a signature move like the figure 4 and old slapnuts Jeff Jarrett had the stroke, what was the name of your signature move? Oh, and I have another question. If there was a movie made about your life, what famous actor would you want to play the role? Assuming that the small guy on Game of Thrones was unavailable. Well, thanks, and love your podcast. Bye.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well, I'll answer the second one first.
I don't understand why these callers are getting so personal.
Man.
Damn.
I'm going to really disappoint
Joanne.
y'all. I know nothing and have never seen Game of Thrones.
Oh, they have a little kind of a midget or dwarf guy who's like about that tall.
No, I don't know anything about that. So I assume that's supposed to be funny, but I don't know anything.
Well, I guess if she had said Hervé Villachez, he would know what she was talking about. So
as far as a signature move,
he was 3 feet tall.
Listen, I just like to hear when a lady like Joanne says slap nuts. That makes me laugh.
That I'll give Joanne some credit for that.
Two questions.
I never developed a signature move.
The DQ, it sounds like.
Yeah, the DQ. The one thing I did do in all the matches that I did because we did a couple matches, not only on the pay-per-view, but I did a couple matches with him prior to that at non-televised events to try to get ready for the main match. And some people call it a sit-down power bomb, where he would jump up kind of on my shoulders, and then I would sit down like in a squat and like a power bomb type deal. I called it a reverse ass, but most people called it a power bomb. But that was the one thing that, if you want to call it a high spot for me as an untrained amateur
move.
He would jump up, and I kind of grabbed him and hold him and would put him down in a reverse.
Kind of had his slap nuts in your face, didn't he?
I mean, that seems.
I got pictures. I don't know why y'all can't find the video, but
well, maybe we'll put those up on our podcast.
If
Facebook
I
page
remember
and websites.
correctly, Hermie wore the old gym shorts and a tank top was his wrestling attire, with some tennis shoes.
Oh man,
you know
that's kind of scary that you pay that close attention.
Okay,
to that.
so how were you training? I mean, who's teaching you all these moves and how you know? Because I think Jeff Jarrett at this very table said, I think he used the word choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
How were you getting that all in while at the same time you're a Fox sportscaster, sports analyst for NASCAR?
A couple things. I just said while you were playing on your phone that I did a couple non-televised events with Ron Killings is his name, K-Crush. We did a couple non-televised events too, but I give K-Crush all the credit. He, so just so you understand, when like on the pay-per-view, you have an agent that tells you basically, this is how much time you got to do your match, and this is what we want the finish to be. So they would tell us, Hermie, Ron, y'all got 12 minutes, and the finish is going to be Ron's going to pin Hermie, and he's going to use the ropes, and then he's going to get DQ'd. So here's a picture. I know you can't see this, but here's a picture of kind of that, what I'm talking about.
Because obviously
that is definitely going up on the website.
Obviously they couldn't let Hermie pin.
This is me whipping his ass in the corner.
Nice guns.
See? Getting a little offense in.
Well, they couldn't let him pin the professional wrestler. So
this is him getting ready to hit a scissors kick on me.
All 115 pounds of him. Look, he's got you got the wife beater T-shirt and you got the gym shorts, just like he said.
See.
But so an agent will tell you, here's kind of us standing in the middle of the ring together before the match started.
Nice. Okay, we got to put these up so people will have the visualization. These are great photos. So make sure you send that to Brad.
An agent will tell you, you've got 10 minutes and this is the finish. But Ron did all of that. Even during the course of the match,
he's calling the match.
He'll call spots to me. Like when you see if you watch a wrestling match and they're getting ready to throw somebody off the ropes or whatever, when they grab the arm and lean in, he'd lean in and say, duck. So he'll throw me off the ropes and I would duck, or whatever the case may be. Or he'd say,
clothesline.
He'd say, okay, power bomb coming. So we had put the match together, and he would call every spot to me. He'd be like, do this, do that, do this, do that. Even when it was my offense or his offense, he would tell me kick out or, or do this. He was the professional, ultimate professional. So he did the whole match. It was the match great? Probably not, but it certainly served the purpose of a NASCAR driver going in but they didn't want, and I didn't want to pin the wrestler. That wouldn't have looked real at all. But they also wanted me to get some semblance of something that they could promote it and get it in the newspaper. And if a wrestler beats a race car driver in a wrestling match, who cares?
Who cares?
But if a NASCAR driver beats a wrestler, if you let him do it the right way, you could protect Ron and him being the tough guy, but also get some mainstream media coverage for TNA at that time. So that's what we did.
Wow. So how many matches did you have like this? And was it usually Ron that you were wrestling?
One pay-per-view. No, I did some tag matches with Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, and I did probably 5 matches.
I bet they were fun to
TV.
work with, too.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you retire undefeated, unscored upon, except for that powerbomb. Looks like you got scored on there.
And getting the Vista Installation sponsorship.
That was the score. How do you get to the point where you move from being part of the marquee to being part of the marketing and owning?
Yeah, very simple. I started working with Jeff Jarrett at TNA. Not too long into the process, maybe 6 months, Jeff and his dad ended up taking on an investor partner, which was Dixie Carter, Her dad is Bob Carter, huge.
Dixie Carter, the actress?
No.
Oh, okay.
But her dad is in the energy business out in Texas, very successful businessman. Dixie was then and still today lives in Nashville. She was a marketing and promotions. She was involved in country music, involved with high quality acts in country music, promoting and managing and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So Jeff initially went to Dixie trying to get some marketing help of how to promote TNA and get some more marketing, to reach new audiences. And that initial meeting ultimately ended up with Dixie Carter buying TNA from Jeff and his dad, ultimately. Because Jeff had a major sponsor, talking about sponsors on a serious note, a major sponsor called Health Source that had agreed to come on to be the major primary sponsor of TNA wrestling as Jeff was getting this product out on TV, and they pulled out at the 11th hour. So Jeff and his dad had no funding to move this promotion along, ultimately trying to get a TV deal. That's what you try to do in a professional wrestling group, is get it up, get it started, and get a TV deal before you run out of money.
Right.
We just missed that.
When Health Source pulled out, Dixie stepped in and not only helped provide marketing, but ended up investing in the company and buying the company to move forward. Now, how I got involved is ultimately they wanted people to, say WWE at that time and still today, they run their own non-televised events, which they called house shows. Jeff and Dixie needed help to do that, needed some people to do that. So they asked me about the possibility of running house shows or non-televised events in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, the Mid-Atlantic region, as we called it. So ultimately, that's what I did. I started a promotion called UWF that Shep was involved in, and we ran licensed house shows for TNA for a period of time. And then after that, we actually ran our own shows with UWF under our own banner once TNA got big enough to do their own thing, kind of.
Okay. So, Shep, how did you get involved?
If I remember correctly, I was DJing at a golf tournament down in Emporia, as you say it. And
you can't even say Emporia.
Emporia. And Hermie was there, and he came up to me. He said, "Are you tired of DJing? You ready to stop?" And I said, "Well, kind of, yeah." He said, "Well, we're getting ready to go on the road with this wrestling. I need equipment. Are you interested?" Mm-hmm. I had the sound system. So actually, Greg Thrift actually started ring announcing the first couple events.
The guy we had who was in the
2
rock
weeks ago
commercials.
Yep, with the rock commercials. So it was one time he couldn't go. One thing led to another. I ended up being the ring announcer as well as the truck driver, as well as the ring setter, as well as the babysitter for the talent, as well as whatever the show needed. It was actually 3 of us from South Hill that really went and did the whole show when Hermie couldn't be there.
So how was it?
It was awesome. Great times, great memories.
Tell us some
Got
stories.
to meet a lot of those guys. A lot of those stories I'm not at liberty to repeat.
Oh, my God. Here we go with ground rules.
Oh,
When was
no.
it always after 8 p.m.
no.
Never at Vegas.
No, I got a long ride home with Hermie, and it will not be getting cussed out the entire
This is a
way.
podcast.
Let's listen to this. I'm going to say this. You have permission to say whatever you want.
We had some great shows. we developed.
Because the fact of the matter is, Shep is way more worried about Terry than he is about Hermie, his wife.
You damn right.
He's got one of those electric fence things.
Man, hey, we met some new security guards, Bluebird from down in South Carolina. We lost the keys to the entire truck one night.
It ain't we. I wasn't even there, so it won't me.
Just some great times, really great times. Still talk to a few of the guys. And, Hermie brought in all the big names. We had them all. All the TNA. We had AJ Styles. We had Jeff Jarrett. We had the Dudleys. We had Billy Gunn and Road Dogg. We
went one of the first people in years down in, I think, Wilmington. We put on a match with the Dudley boys against the Steiners. Rick and Scott Steiner against the Dudleys.
Yeah.
And that match prior to that
would have never happened.
Would never have happened. But I had relationships with all of them, and they did us favors in some of those cases, because those matches that everybody wanted to see, that Vince or nobody could ever put together, they could have put those matches on for anybody and probably made a lot more money on them than they did putting it on for us. But I mean, we had the Hardys, we had the Steiners, we had the Dudleys, we
America's
had
Most Wanted.
We had Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, the D-Generation X from WWE.
Right.
I mean, we had some really talented wrestlers that people wouldn't recognize the names as quickly. Guys like Jerry Lynn,
Samoa
Christopher
Joe.
Daniels, Samoa Joe, right on, in the early days. And we had some Chris Sabin, Petey Williams. I mean, we had our cards were stacked from top to bottom.
They really were stacked. No question about it.
You bringing in the crowds too?
I was trying. Yeah.
I mean, you probably were loading them up with those kind of stars.
Oh, you mean were we bringing it?
Yeah,
Or was the show?
yeah.
Yeah, we had some great turn. We had some great gates.
So
and look, we had some that were not so great.
Of course, that's just the
it's just
nature
hit
of the
and
business.
miss. We went all the way to Connecticut, and we went all the way to Tennessee, down through Georgia.
How many pay-per-view events?
We didn't do televised.
We were doing
events.
non-televised events.
You were local.
No, we were.
I mean, local advertising.
Yeah.
But not on TV.
We were running non-televised events for TNA.
Gotcha.
To expand the brand name.
Gotcha.
Hundreds at a time.
Because they weren't. They
So it's
didn't
kinda
have
like
a TV.
the minor leagues of TNA.
That's
I mean,
right.
It's
Yes.
kind of the feeder leagues.
Yes.
We
They
were
didn't-
trying to take the brand to the different markets that TNA wasn't reaching yet.
To get exposure.
To get
for
exposure for them, so more people will watch the pay-per-views and that kind of thing. Okay. And then when TNA finally started doing their own, which looking back now was probably a mistake for them, they weren't ready for it yet. Then we branched off and just did UWF. We rebranded our events to strictly UWF and continued to run shows, and probably
For a
had
couple
more
years.
success with those shows than we did actually with TNA shows, because we had more authority creatively on who we could bring in.
How much time was that taking for you guys? I mean, it had to be a lot.
A lot.
You know,
And you were still being a sports analyst at that
A lot,
time
yeah.
for Fox.
And had car dealerships, and Shep had businesses and things and working. And I mean, it wasn't anybody's primary source of income, that's for sure.
And at the time, TNA was taping in Orlando, so they weren't, again, like Hermie said, they didn't have that big TV contract yet. They had it was on TV, but it wasn't that big contract yet, and they weren't traveling. So that was what we did for them. It was a really good fit at first. Then when they wanted to do it on their own, it kind of, I think our shows were more successful.
Now, during this time when this is going on and TNA is taking off, I mean, Jeff Jarrett came up through the WWE world. He's now in competition with Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
This part that's not choreographed is what kind of heat were you getting from WWE, WWF? Were they looking at you in the same way that, say, the NFL was looking at the USFL back in the day? I mean,
I don't know what kind of feedback or whatever Jeff may have been getting, or even if he would even care. But
I don't think we got it.
I never spoke to anybody at WWE about it. It was none of their business. But when WWE talent would get released, as the Vince does occasionally, just to change things up, and that's a big ongoing battle he has with talent. He does everybody as independent contractor, so he'll bring Bill Stanley in, put you on TV, use you, but when he's done with you, you're done. There's no benefits, there's no nothing. But we had the promotion in the UWF days, especially when people got released from contracts or had the ability to do independent shows. They called us.
They were calling
because they knew we took care of them, and we did all of our shows. We did 2-night loops in a row because it didn't make sense financially to fly wrestlers in from all over the country and do one show on a Saturday night. So we would fly them in and do, like, say, Chattanooga and then
Nashville.
We'd bring, so we fly them to do Richmond and, Norfolk. We do a Friday night and a Saturday night, or sometimes a Saturday night and a Sunday afternoon, to get 2 shows.
Or 3. We've even done
ticket.
3 in a weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was the craziest thing that you ever? You're managing talent. You're managing, athletes. You're managing personalities.
You're managing a bunch of misfits in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And Hermie really,
what's some of the crazy things that happened?
Hermie had all of that taken care of on that side. I guess where I would come in, and Earl Hebner was a huge help, because when I had a talent that that didn't want to cooperate. Because, look, he didn't know me. I was a nobody. I was just Hermie's guy. I would go get Earl. Earl, I need you to go talk to Bill. He knows he can't sell his souvenirs now, or he knows he's late to the building, or whatever the issue was. You know, I would always use Earl as that buffer, and most of the time, just out of sheer respect for Earl, the talent would, you know,
and what
would
he's
get in
saying,
line.
some of those guys, there's big egos, and but if I hired a guy, I remember that one of the first ones that we ran into was with Scott Steiner.
Scott Steiner,
which
man.
Scott is a good friend of mine,
and a great guy.
And when I hired him, I said, you know, before each show, part of the ticket thing that we sold was an opportunity to meet
The ultimate experience.
So you paid extra money to be able to exclusively meet these wrestlers.
Kind of like we do in Smart Series where the fans come down to the track and they meet all the race car
it
drivers.
was part of our ticket price.
Right.
So everybody didn't get it, just the people that bought the most expensive ticket. Well, like Scott Steiner or somebody who'd been well established, been around for a long time, he rolled in the first night, brought all his souvenirs up and set it up right beside all of our stuff, and just thought he was just supposed to sit down and start signing autographs and selling stuff when that wasn't the deal that we made. So sometimes when I wasn't there, it was more difficult to get, because as to Shep's point, Scott's not interested in what Shep would have to say. So it was good to have Earl there to say, come on, Steiner, you know the deal. You got to do this hour thing before the show. It's part of what you get paid for. And then when the show's over or during the intermission, you do whatever you want. And so, but you had to try to keep all, because all of them thought they were more important than the next one. You know, Steiner thought he ought to be making more money than Kevin Nash, or Kevin Nash thought he ought to be making more money than Jeff Jarrett. And they all thought they were the
cream of the crop,
the draw for the show.
So you didn't pay him scale. You had to negotiate what each got per event.
Each guy I negotiated with individual. I did it all myself, and we negotiated it based on, in most cases, 2 nights of shows, which was great for them because there was not many
doing
independent outlets back in those days that they know that they were going to get a plane ticket, 2 well-run shows, get paid well, stay in nice hotels, and all that.
And never had to worry about the check. Where is my money? I'm getting paid. You know, that's one thing about Hermie. He's always 100% business. When he says he's going to do it, that's exactly what he's going to do.
So these are non-televised, non-pay-per-view. I mean, are you making money at the gate?
Yeah. We made some money.
And we did own DVDs. Now, Hot Spots down in Charlotte.
Yeah, all the shows were recorded and put out on DVDs, which, and for what we were doing, made it probably better that we weren't on TV because our shows were getting such great reviews and things of that nature. A lot of people bought the DVDs. You got to remember, this is in the early 2000s.
I think 2006 maybe.
This wasn't live stream and stuff like that like you got now, Facebook Live or whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't any of that.
Pay-per-view was kind of new even too.
We were selling DVDs to the shows and making good money on that too.
Huh.
It was great.
So how long did you do this? I mean, you guys
5
split
years?
off of TNA.
I'm going to say
right?
probably about 5 years.
Okay, so you split off of TNA.
Yeah.
You're running independent.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a feeder for TNA at that point.
No.
And why again? I mean,
they were really a feeder for us.
They
really.
wanted to do their own kind of feeder system, go in their own way without having your guys' support.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of started this independent run.
That's right.
So you had no further relationship with TNA after that?
Well, that's not fair to say. Maybe we still use some of their talent, and we shot video footage of certain things that they wanted maybe shot that they could use on their TV show. We did some little angles and different things that our DVD camera crew would shoot and they would use on their TV. And so, I mean, I still then and still today have
they were
great
like on
relationships.
Fox News or I mean, not Fox News, Fox TV or some kind of, your feeder station.
Yeah.
UHF, VHF.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out. It was a great relationship.
Fox Sports West and some other things like that. And they went to Spike TV and different things.
Yeah,
but
Spike TV. There you go.
We still had a great relationship with Jeff, still do today, and I still am great friends with Dixie Carter. But they wanted to have 100% control over every aspect and try to control their wrestlers and stuff. And then, but ultimately, they never really got their whole house show program where I think they wanted it to be.
TNA did not last, though. Obviously.
Yeah, they're still going.
They're still
now.
going.
It's called Impact.
It's Impact Wrestling now.
Oh, all right.
We just said a couple weeks ago on Sunday night, they had their 20th anniversary show for Slammiversary.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
Impact
they're
is
still
TNA.
going.
Well, then that shows you what I don't know.
Yeah.
What's one of your craziest moments, Shep? When you were working for Hermie, you're managing talent. You know, one of those times maybe you got your ass almost beat. One of those times when
I would say really the deal with Scott Steiner. You know, I went up to him and about the souvenirs, and I said, you know, Scott, I'm so-and-so, XYZ, you know, you can't do this. I thought he was going to slap the shit out of me. And I immediately went and got Earl. I called Hermie. I think Hermie maybe even called Scott at the time, maybe at that show. We were up in New Jersey. And, you know, after that, he settled down. He was a great, I thought he was a great talent as far as showing up, doing his deal. Never really had any problems with him. Sabu was a little different deal. You know, the night up in Philadelphia, I think we did the Philadelphia loop 3 times.
Oh, how'd you get Sabu out of the hotel room, by the way?
I wasn't there, so I'm not sure.
I don't even remember. I mean, it was just,
I just know they told me
remember.
They called security on him for breaking into the snack machine like at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then
you know, we had a fun show in Harrisonburg. I think you had brought Maven in. He was just off of WWE at that time. He was up there selling cars. He was from Harrisonburg. Hermie, when we first started doing it, Hermie would always have the after show parties, and he would go to a local bar, a nightclub, or whatever, and the guys would go there and have hors d'oeuvres and drinks and just kind of hang out. We never got to really do that because we were packing the show up and normally driving to the next town. Hermie would always book. He'd always book the closest location to South Hill the first night. So we may be 4 hours away from home. Now I'm driving another 3. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting a motel at 5. We're at the building by 10:30,
like
11 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah, but he needed
I mean,
a lawyer.
I'm like, damn, Hermie, can we start the furthest? You know, I can leave Thursday night and start working back home, but it really.
Did you go to HR about this?
I did.
Was there an
have
HR for the wrestling league?
And then the damn blue sticker came up.
Yeah, what is the blue sticker, guys? You mentioned it.
The damn blue sticker probably put us out of business.
What is the dreaded blue sticker?
Tell him.
The blue sticker is from IFTA. Are you familiar with IFTA?
That sounds like a government thing. No,
it is a government thing. So if your vehicle is over 26,000 pounds combined weight, truck and trailer, you have to have a CDL.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't have one, but I had a lifelong best friend and mentor who was a inspector for DMV, of the state police, which made me get a CDL. Once you cross state line with commerce, then you have to have the IFTA sticker. And I think it was very expensive. Do you remember?
You want to hear my side of the story yet?
Yeah. Well, not really.
It's about $8,000.
Yes.
To get this
per
IFTA
year.
sticker.
Per year.
And I understand the close friend, and God bless him, he's no longer with us.
He's
all
not.
that. But what Shep, and this is probably the only time that we joke a lot, but this is the only time that I really
he got upset,
was mad at him, was because
he got upset.
We had been running shows and using that truck and trailer for years.
And hauling race cars all across the country, didn't have.
Everywhere.
And
then he decided.
Violating the law.
He decided. Well, no, says who?
Oh, I'm just over here.
But that's what I'm saying. He came in and dreamed up all of this stuff because his friend told him.
Dreamed it up.
He had to. We didn't have to have one for 5 years, but now all of a sudden, since his friend wants him to get a CDL and thinks we need to do that, then we have to go get a sticker, a CDL. But Hermie's the one that had to pay the $8,000 a year.
Actually, let's see if he remembers this story. We're going to Waynesboro to do a show at the fair. Do you remember that show?
Can I ask you one more question?
Yes, sir.
How many times did you get a ticket or get warned or get locked up?
I'm getting ready to tell you.
Okay.
We're going to Waynesboro, just on the other side of South Hill, 8-9 miles out of town. It's a Scales there. So the guy that was going with me at the time.
Why did you stop at the Scales?
You won't listen to the story. Are we going number 1 or are we going 85? Because we know we've got to try to circumvent, as the House Democrats did. We've got to circumvent these scales. So
you've never got to circumvent the scales. You don't have to stop.
We went number one. We got stopped. What are you doing on this road? Okay, get interrogated. I don't have a CDL at the time. We're overweight. Everything is wrong. We're running a dealer tag on the trailer. We're not even running the right license plates. Sir, I want you to follow me back to the scale house with this truck. No, sir. If I'm not supposed to drive it, I'm not moving it. Long story short, we have to call in another one of Hermie's lifelong friends, Andy Walker. He was a licensed CDL driver at the time, driving for the Brickyard down there in Lawrenceville. He came, picked us up at the scale house, drove to Waynesboro, and drove the truck back. At that point, that's when I had to get a CDL license. So we actually did get caught and stopped.
My father used to say, no matter how thin you make a pancake, there's always another side to it. Is there another side here, Mr. Sadler?
Shep just had in his mind that he wanted to be official and be important and put a blue sticker on the truck and get a CDL. I can just say this. We ran shows and ran that vehicle up and down the road for years and years and years. He got too close to his buddies and was talking to his buddies too much about what we were doing and how we were operating, and he walked himself right into Hermie's, into spending $8,000 of Hermie's money to put a sticker on the truck.
Just because you've been doing something all along, it doesn't make it right, does it, Senator?
I'm not getting in the middle of this one. I'm just going to let this run. You guys keep going. This is good.
Well, I tell you, something else happened. Something else happened with your driver's license. You called me one day from DMV that you had gone to renew your driver's license, and they wouldn't renew them. They had put a hold on your driver's license. I want to say that was around $800 for you to get that freed up.
For what?
Maybe the fuel tax or something on that UWF truck wasn't parked. But you called me.
Because with the IFTA sticker comes a lot of other reports that Shep failed to.
And he called me one day, and again, he was fired up because he had to pay that fine to get his personal driver's license renewed.
I see. So is this how your wrestling careers came to a close?
That's how mine ended. No, mine definitely ended right there. A damn blue sticker.
Ultimately, we can laugh about it now.
No, you were mad.
I was mad that we had operated fine without the blue sticker. He can say all the stories he wants to about getting stopped and all that, but he was going and soliciting his friends.
He wanted me to just blow by the scale house. Just blow by them.
We've been driving that truck up and down the road with no problems for years. But ultimately, the reason I got out is because just too much going on.
Yeah.
Because not only at that time was I still racing, I started doing not only the pre-race show, but also I started doing DirecTV Hot Pass and a lot of other things I was doing. I was just gone all the time.
All the time.
And it got to be,
And really a lot of the shows at the end, you weren't coming to.
Yeah.
He just couldn't.
Yeah.
So it just changed, but we had a good 5 or 6 year run. It was good.
Okay, so I'm going to end this segment. This is amazing, and I'm sure there's some more stories we can tell throughout the podcast in the future. But I'm going to end it this way. Joanne did also ask if there was a movie made about your life, let's say about wrestling and your interesting life in NASCAR. Who would you want the actor to be, to play you, and why? Not the guy from Game of Thrones, obviously, or Hervé Villachez. Who would that be?
I don't agree with his politics, but what's the guy's name? Liam Neeson, the guy that does the Taken movies?
Yeah.
Oh, I will come for you.
Yeah, that guy. Just because he's a badass in the movie.
I was thinking maybe you were thinking Tom Cruise.
Oh, he's a fruitcake.
Shep,
no, I'm not doing that.
You will get the blue sticker now, but I will take it off later. I will come for you.
Hey, I got to tell you this real quick. I'm going to do it in 30 seconds. We had another trip going down to South Carolina. Hermie and the Hepners are riding in the car. Me and my crew are going down 85. Hermie passes us. He calls in like an hour. Where are y'all? Okay. Well, we had lost, at the time we were using one of the NASCAR race trailers. We had lost the gate that flips up on top where you can go up and stand. So it was a railing up. Little did he know we had lost that. We had blown 3 tires, and one of the trailer tires had actually come off of the hub, bouncing down 85, crosses the K-rail into oncoming traffic. And he's wondering to know where in the hell I'm at.
But the sticker fixed all that.
The sticker fixed it.
Shep, I wish we would have known each other early. I would have had you retired by now with the kind of damages we could have gotten in a court of law against this
it's been a lot of emotional stress.
wrestling
A lot of
production.
emotional stress.
Well, ladies and
He'll
gentlemen,
never admit it now, but that's the best time, the best fun he's ever had in his life.
I did admit it.
and I'm going to leave you guys with a teaser. This has been great. And Hermie's relationship with wrestlers. But we're not going to go into this deep. But Hermie has a long-standing relationship, not just with Dwayne "The Rock Broke My Heart" Johnson, as we heard in earlier podcasts, but also with the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. In fact, Nature Boy has done radio ads for my man Hermie, and I'm going to leave on this. We're gonna play this, but we're not going to talk about your relationship with the Nature Boy just yet.
Okay,
that'll be for a later podcast. Brad?
Woo! Folks, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, 16-time world champion. I'm here to tell you right now that it's time for you to try Faux Show Italian Sports Grill in Emporia, Virginia. We do it all: dine-in, carry-out, drive-through, private parties, and now full-service catering. That's right, brother. We can bring the whole show to you. We offer a menu of appetizers, fresh salads, made-to-order Italian dishes, brick oven pizzas, just like the Nature Boy. Woo! The greatest of all time. Call my man Hermie and his staff at Faux Show Italian Sports Grill today at 1-855-MY-FAUX Show. That's 1-855-MY-FAUX Show for more information, or stop by I-95 exit 11B Emporia. Woo! Open Tuesday through Sunday at 11 a.m. I'll see you, the Nature Boy, that's right, I'll see you at Faux Show. Woo! Faux Show is
awesome. Hey, Brad, I want you to give your best impression of woo into the microphone over here. Because it's woo. That was kind of okay. So we're going to hold on to that. That's a teaser. That is an episode next on Oprah, on the next episode of Oprah. Nature Boy and Hermie Sadler, the stormy romance.
I actually have a story about me and Hermie going out to eat with Nature Boy. We'll do it in that podcast.
Please, it's going to be a great one. Just as the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson podcast was great. If you haven't listened to that podcast, listen to that. It's that time when The Rock took Hermie for granted. An award-winning podcast.
My time in the wrestling business was very educational. I'll leave it at that.
And we have more to talk about when we talk about the Nature Boy and Hermie Sadler. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've packed this episode full of stuff. And so I want to thank everybody for listening. Take us out, Hermie. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm always, always, always leaning right.
And I'm former NASCAR driver and Fox Sports analyst Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left. This is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. We appreciate everybody who downloads, listens, watches on YouTube, and really has supported this podcast. Shep, thank you again for sitting in with us. I have finally forgiven you for the blue sticker.
Well, I only got 12 stitches in this finger from a wrestling show.
Here we go, another one.
Do you do personal injury?
I'm telling you, you should have called me years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for listening. God bless you all.
We'll see you next week.